It's time to gather loved ones together for all the holidays' best spread. Lynn's has great prices on all your favorite Thanksgiving items, from delicious turkey with all the fixings to mashed potatoes and yummy pies. We have everything you need to create your perfect Thanksgiving dinner. Whether it's cooking the traditional meal, completely store-bought, or a combination of both, your best holiday meal starts here. Learn more and start shopping today at linsgrocery.com. Lynn's, where delicious begins.
Hey, it's Storyworthy. Today on the show, comedian Shane Rogers talks about almost getting kicked out of college.
When I got back to my dorm room, I was so drunk. We had keypads to get in. We didn't have keys. And I could not, for the life of me, get the code to work. I just couldn't even do my code. The only way I got in was that I have, as an RA, I had the master code. And at first, I couldn't tell what it was, but there was something there. And as I got closer, I realized that there was a human-shaped figure in my bed. And so I pulled the covers off this person and pulled him out of bed. And I was yelling at him, and I pushed him out of the room. He was in, I guess, underwear. I got in the bed, immediately passed out because I was wasted. And I can tell by your face, you already know where this is going.
Today on the show, comedian Shane Rogers talks about a night in college he'll never forget. Stay close.
Hey, it's Shane Rogers, and you're listening to Storyworthy.
Welcome to Storyworthy. My name is Christine Blackburn, and I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, California. Whether you're a longtime fan of the show or a brand new listener, welcome to Storyworthy. Hope you guys enjoyed the show last week, which was Story Smash, the storytelling game show, live in Big Bear, California. That's right. We took the whole gang up the hill to Big Bear. It's about 2 hours from LA, north and east mainly. And we had a blast. We all stayed at the same place. We had little cabins, and we performed there were 75 people, which was sold out. And, you know, the bar was hopping. We had the campfire. We did the s'mores. Oh, and we rented a boat. We went out on a boat. So we had a blast. We did the whole Big Bear Lake, and we just had so much fun. I think we're going to be back as well. But anyway, you guys can listen to the episode, Story Smash, the storytelling game show from last week in Big Bear, July 21st. Was that the date? It doesn't matter. The point is, Story Smash is going strong. The next date in Los Angeles is Saturday, August 10th at the Lyric Hyperion. You can go over to storysmashshow.com and get your ticket now. Okay. You guys heard on the show before last when I was talking to Jen Kober that I had to take a little time off because I lost my hearing. Okay, this is probably news to you, Shane. But I abruptly lost my hearing in May, the end of May.
Jesus. I
know, right? It's called sudden onset hearing loss.
Oh, God.
And it happened.
Another thing for me to be terrified of. Oh, no.
They don't know how it happened. It could have been a virus, and it could have been a small stroke.
Oh, wow.
And so anyway, I've been getting, I got a CAT scan of my head, and then yesterday I got an MRI of my head, which is, real pleasant.
I've had it.
Ever had an MRI?
I have, yeah. I had convinced myself for a while that I had a brain tumor, and so I did go in and get an MRI.
Oh, I'm glad you did, and it showed you didn't.
Yep. Okay.
Boy, I bet that was a good feeling, right?
It was. The MRI, not a great feeling, but definitely the results were good.
Yeah, because the MRI, I'm sure ours were similar because I also had the brain MRI. I had to be in that machine for like 35 minutes.
I'm claustrophobic too, so it was a very uncomfortable 30 minutes.
Yeah, and then they like kind of brought me out of the tube, and then they injected this, the dye in me. Or, I'm not sure what it is. It's called contrast. And then they put you back in.
Yeah. Yeah.
The second time was only like 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a torture device, but I guess it's good in the end. But not.
I know, but like we can put a man on the moon, but we can't silence an MRI. You know
It's so crazy. It sounds like a construction crew is working in that thing.
Yeah, but you know what the craziest thing is? Because I've lost my hearing in my right ear, I could only hear it in my left ear. But that's how bad my hearing is. I heard nothing in the right ear.
So you lost your hearing in both ears for a while, and then it came back in one.
No,
Do they think it'll come
I only ever lost it in one ear, my right ear.
Okay.
Just one ear. I was watching TV one night, and I had an earache. I had some ear problems, but one night I was watching TV May 30th, and I heard my hearing go, and it just went out.
Oh, jeez.
I know. I've said this before on the show. It's crazy. But anyway, I'm dealing with that. So thanks for being patient with me and Storyworthy. Please go back in the catalog of over 840 episodes, and I'm sure you'll find a story that you haven't heard yet. So it's storyworthypodcast.com. Yes, we know. Today, you guys, I'm here with a really interesting comedian, and he brings forth the topic, a close call in college. A close call in college. So I'm anxious to hear this story. But Shane, I'm very interested in you as a comedian and your podcast that I've fallen in love with. It's called Midnight Facts for Insomniacs, which is a very clever title.
Oh, thank you.
Midnight
I can't.
Facts for Insomniacs. It says it all. It says everything that the show is.
Yeah, I can't take credit for the title. That was the co-host, Duncan. But it's a podcast of fascinating facts, just kind of for people who have trouble sleeping at night and want something to listen to. We kind of keep people entertained. And that describes me. I have terrible insomnia and always have. So it's not insomnia related, the topics, but we did one episode on insomnia. But for the most part, it's just it's interesting facts. They're all voted on by the listeners. So we actually don't choose the topics, but we do a real deep dive. Yeah, we have a Discord community with about 600 people in there. Really good, tight-knit community. They all kind of suggest the topics, and then they do a weekly poll and they vote on them. And then I have to do a deep dive and learn all about that topic, and then I teach it to Duncan. So,
boy, I'm really impressed. I'm really impressed. And you've been doing it since 2020, it seems.
Yeah, right around it took off right around quarantine. So we started it, I think, just a couple weeks before everything started shutting down. It was really wild timing. And then luckily for us, that was good timing for us. We didn't have anything else to do all of a sudden. And so the podcast kind of took off at that point.
And you guys live in Santa Cruz, California?
We do. And strangely enough, so Duncan and I, the story that I'm going to tell took place in college, and Duncan and I were together in college. We had known each other from high school. We ended up going to college together. We were in bands together for years.
Gosh.
We then lived together when we moved to Santa Cruz because he went to college here. And then we ended up going through separations. He went through a divorce. I went through kind of a separation with my wife around the same time, and we moved back in together. So we now live in the same house and do this podcast together.
You guys are awesome. I love that.
Yeah, it's an interesting story.
It does come through in the podcast because you don't step on each other. Duncan often provokes you, and it's good. It's really good. So, of course, you don't have to have Insomniac to listen to this show because it is really just fascinating facts, and it's so interesting. Some of them are one that I listen to, The Dark Side of Disney. I always like that. I had a podcast on called that as well. Some guy who worked for Disney told me all about it, and it was fascinating. It's still to this day one of my best downloaded episodes.
Yeah, I bet. That's fascinating.
But I love that one. And then you have, just different topics that are very random, like an invasive species, claws, tusks, and karmic retribution. What was that covering? Like in other words, tell me what that was covering.
Yeah, I was kind of confused as to what that was going to be. So sometimes, I'll see the topics that end up in the Discord community and I have to ask for clarification because I'm like, what are you guys talking about here? Invasive species is species. So it could be plants. It could be animals that were brought over from somewhere else. Humans are very good at settling different parts of the world and then introducing rats or bugs, or like, for instance, the kudzu vine in the South that kind of just suddenly come into a new environment and then just take over.
Yeah.
And so invasive species, we did, there was a small bug that we talked about. We talked about cats. Cats are actually famously an invasive species that have taken over pretty much the entire world and the internet.
Specifically Poland and Iceland.
Mm-hmm.
They're an invasive species. If your cat is out past 9 p.m. in Iceland, they'll take it out.
Yeah, cats have decimated, especially bird populations on islands. There's famously an island off of South Africa where one cat, a pregnant cat named Tibbles, was introduced, and she and her offspring completely destroyed the population of a small flightless bird, because obviously it had no defenses.
Wow.
And that bird is now extinct, and it was one cat and some kittens that took it out. So cats are, they're invasive.
I read a little bit about that, and it's because, a cat can jump on a bird, and the bird is sitting on 5 eggs, and it's now wiped out 6 birds.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. And, cats also are have become sort of tied to humans in a really unique way. They took over the internet too. They invaded all of our lives. And so humans just keep taking them to new places. And, we're really tied to these animals that honestly aren't domesticated. Cats aren't domesticated the way dogs are. It's almost like living with a little, serial killer roommate who goes out, and if you let your cat out, they'll go out and destroy the population. I have a cat he is indoor, but my previous cat was outdoor, and man, she liked to make her presence known. She definitely wiped out her fair share of species outside.
Yeah. We had the same thing growing up, in rural Pennsylvania, same thing. But now, like in LA, my cats are indoor cats. I think most people's in the city are indoor cats, but you do see them outside.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, fascinating show. I'm really thrilled to have found it. So thank you very much for that. And you have kept it up. You've been doing a great job on Midnight for Insomniacs. So that's awesome. You also are a comedian, and you were raised in a circus, which is just stunning. I mean, I'm sure everybody says that, but it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it was definitely a unique upbringing. It was called the Pickle Family Circus. It was a big top circus, but it wasn't sort of what you might consider like a Barnum and Bailey situation. We didn't have animals. It was considered, it was kind of a progressive circus, I guess you would say. It was based in San Francisco. It was a very famous institution in San Francisco called the Pickle Family Circus. And we did tour in the summers. So we would go all over America, and we did Canada a lot.
Okay, wait. There were no animals.
There were no animals.
So what were the acts in the circus, in the pickle circus?
So the acts were all human based. So it was, that we had clowns, we had trampoline, we had trapeze, I was a tumbler, so I did acrobatics as a little kid. And then we had, there was kind of audience involvement stuff. But it was all, juggling. My mom, at the end of every show, there was what was called the big juggle. She would stand on a big globe, like this big ball, and juggle pins, and they would pass them back and forth with the lead clown in the middle. And she was the box office manager, but everyone had to be in the show in some capacity. And so at the very end, she would run and start juggling and then go back to the
Shane. That is so fabulous.
Yeah, it was wild. It was definitely wild.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
No, I'm an only child. I have a lot
kidding.
My mom has a big family. She was one of 9. So I have a lot of cousins and nieces. Yeah.
And this was all in Northern California?
Well, the circus is based in Northern California, but we traveled all over. So I've been to almost every state. I think we didn't go to Texas. We didn't do like the deep South. But other than that, we would go to every state in America, all the contiguous states. And then we would do a pretty good chunk of Canada as well. And we would travel in the summers. So during the winters and the off season, we would create the show, or they would create the show. I was just a, cog in the wheel. And then during the summers, we would tour the show.
Yeah. And you're going to school like regular.
Yeah, I did have to I had to leave school early every year, and they would let me go, and they would give me, I had lesson plans and things that I had to work on and turn in when I would get back.
Shane, I find that so fascinating. I mean, people must be like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. Yeah. And I'm glad to hear there weren't animals.
Yeah, it was a humane circus. That was kind of their tagline. So yeah, no animals, no like elephants or anything. We did kind of work with other circuses sometimes that did have animals. So I got that experience a little bit. But it's not a great thing. Animals are not treated well classically in circuses. So yeah.
Right. Did you guys delve into like the odd and freakish stuff or not?
No, there was no, it was a San Francisco based circus. So very like PC. There was no kind of carnival atmosphere, freak show stuff. We did have a midway out front where the people could play games and do but there was nothing. It was all very, it was just humans showing off their skills. It was like a little tiny mini version of the Olympics kind of with clowning as well.
It's kind of funny that you now have this podcast, Midnight Facts for Insomniacs, because you have like probably seen more than most. I mean, just in touring around and hanging out with adults and being treated just like another worker, probably in ways. And your eyes were so much further, you just had seen a lot more than probably your classmates in that little town in California.
That's true. Yeah. It's funny that you clock that because it's something I don't bring up much, the aspect of that it was great. I do not at all regret my childhood. I'm very grateful to my mom for getting those experiences. It was very unique and very cool. And I got to travel all over the place. But at the same time, other kids were spending their summer playing video games and getting on bikes and having a good time. And I was working, I was basically, it was child labor. Like I spent my summers working my butt off in a circus. We didn't have like roadies. We were the roadies. So we would tear the circus down and put it into these huge Mack trucks and then go to the next place. And then we had to set it up. So
did you make money? Did you have a bank account?
I did make money, but it went to my mom. I mean, my parents handled my money or my mom. My mom was a single mom. My dad is a great guy, but not really in the picture. And so she would like buy me stuff and say, this is from your money. But no, I didn't see any of that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And your dad, did he leave the circus or did he never join the circus?
He was never in the circus. It's a long story with my biological dad died when I was very young. And then the guy that I consider my dad and my mom became involved, but for a very short time. And he just ended up staying in my life kind of distantly. He's a great guy. He didn't have to stay in my life, which was amazing. I still consider him my dad. That's and nice. I go see him when I can. But they weren't together for very long. So he kind of was off. He went to New York and was doing his own thing.
Boy, man, you saw a lot. You were like not even a little child. You were a little man.
I had to grow up pretty fast.
It sounds like it. I mean, it really does. But today you're bringing forth the topic of close call in college, and I look forward to hearing it. I got suspended in college for 3 days. And of course, alcohol was involved. And it was, I'm not proud, but I was 17 when I started.
Oh, wow. And
my roommate, her name was Karen Ledesma. And Karen had a good friend in Puerto Rico where she was from named Juan Bacardi III. And he was, in fact, like one of the Bacardis.
The Bacardis. Wow.
And he came up with a case of like the light, the dark, all the different.
As he should. You would be disappointed if Juan Bacardi showed up empty-handed.
That is what. And, I'm not proud. We took bottles over to another dorm, which was very tall, called the Towers. And when the party got busted by the police, they said, "Who has the bottle?" And I was holding it and I said, "Bottle, what bottle?" And I threw it out the window.
Oh, God.
But that's 15 floors down, like not safe. Not safe.
Ooh, could have been bad.
That was the 3-day suspension. Anyway, that was my only close call. Other than that, I just got through college. I got a lot of B's and C's and nobody's ever asked me about it. But I do have the piece of paper.
Well, my story is along similar lines, but a little bit more dramatic and became a bit of a legend in
I can't wait to
hear
it. Okay,
Yeah.
before we get over to your story, I did want to remind everybody to check out storyworthypodcast.com. You'll get a lot of information there. And I'm doing a lot more stand-up comedy. So check out ChristineBlackburn.com, of course. And My Life in Three Songs is still going strong over on Spotify. My Life in Three Songs.com. Check it out, you guys. I talk to comedians about the 3 songs in their life that have impacted them. You will enjoy it. All right, you guys. Right now, we're going to hear this story from Shane Rogers. Like I said, he is a comedian who was raised in the circus. Let's just put that in there. And is now the co-host of the hit podcast Midnight Facts for Insomniacs, which is really an interesting show. I just love it. You can also listen to it, this one and that one, or this one and that one. You don't have to, there's no through line or anything. It's just independent shows, which I really enjoy. You guys can head over to ShaneRogers.net to find out a lot more about this guy. All right, you guys, wherever you are, put your hands together for Shane Rogers.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great to be here. I enjoy your show as well. Okay, yeah. So I was, when I graduated from high school, I did not have any money for college and really was not prepared for college. I certainly hadn't done well in high school. As you can imagine, there wasn't a lot of money in the circus game. So I was not in a good place for college. I also, once I stopped the circus around freshman year, I stopped performing in the circus because it suddenly wasn't all that cool anymore to be the circus kid.
Wait, freshman year of high school or college?
Yeah.
So you were like 15.
Yep. I was in the circus from about 8 to 15. And it had been very cool when I was in middle school. I was the circus kid who, could do flips and stuff. And that was I was kind of the celebrity of my middle school. And then, boy, let me tell you, that did not translate over to high school. They did not think it was cool that I was a circus kid. It was like the freak kid. Mm-hmm. So I left the circus and I kind of got into a bad crowd and sort of started experimenting with drugs and doing my own thing. So I was not taking high school seriously. My strategy in high school was to high school as little as I could possibly high school. So I didn't go all that much. And when I graduated, I didn't know what I was going to do with myself. My mom's idea was the military. In retrospect, probably wouldn't have been a bad idea, but I wasn't feeling it. So what we agreed on was the AmeriCorps program. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but you work in like impoverished communities. I worked in community gardens, a lot of manual labor. And then at the end, you get a stipend for college, a small amount of money after a year. I did it for 2 years. So I had a little bit of money for college. It was about, I think, at the time you worked for under minimum wage because they didn't have to pay you minimum wage because it was a government thing. And I worked for $4.11 an hour. But at the end, you got this chunk of money that could only be used for college. So I had about $9,000, which is even back then was not a lot for college. So I was trying to figure out kind of how I was going to make that work. I found that there was a college in Northern California called College of the Redwoods up in Humboldt County. It's in Eureka, California, and it has dorms. It's one of the only community colleges that has dorms. And I thought that would be really beneficial to kind of get the dorm experience. And I thought that would make it easier for me to focus on school because I would be able to live there and not have to have a job in an apartment and divide my time. So with that amount of money, I could do about 2 semesters in the dorms. And I also had some like government assistance. And I just figured, okay, I'm going to go up there and see how that goes. And then I'll figure out what I'm going to do when that money runs out. So my first couple semesters were amazing. One of the best times of my life. Duncan went up there with me. We were just partying and having fun. I was also taking school very seriously. I had taken a couple years of doing manual labor and realized like that was not for me. So I definitely was motivated to get through college and be able to do something else. So it went really well. I was getting straight A's. I was having a great time. I started running out of that money and realized I was going to have to figure something out. And what I came up with was I decided that I would apply to be a resident advisor, an RA. So at your college, you probably had these as well.
RAs,
kind of considered the like campus cop, which is not great. It's, not a good look, but you do get free food and housing. And at the time, that was what I needed. And also in Humboldt, it's a little different. You know, everyone's partying in Humboldt. They didn't expect a lot from us. It wasn't like we spent our days just being a killjoy and destroying everyone's good time. We really were there as a resource and to sort of call the authorities if something terrible happened. And you got your own room, which was also pretty nice. So I did become an RA, and I really was honestly enjoying it. I had at that point a really good group of friends, and a girlfriend, this girl from Holland that I was dating. She was like an exchange student. And so that first year of being an RA, absolutely amazing. And I was really looking forward to my last I guess it was my last semester of college, and I was applying to other schools. I wanted to transfer to a 4-year university. Everything was coming up Shane at that point. Things were going well. Yeah. Until my birthday happened. And I guess I say it like it's something that happened to me, but it feels that way. It's really mostly my fault, I guess. We decided that we were going to have a big party for my birthday. I think it was my 23rd at this point, because I'd spent a couple years out of school and another year kind of messing around, or in AmeriCorps, and then 2 years or 1 year messing around, 2 years in AmeriCorps. So I had been kind of the party guy. Like, I was the guy who could buy alcohol, right? Because I'd been over 21. So a lot of people saw me as kind of I was the source of the party in some ways. When I became an RA, that changed to an extent, but we could still party off campus. So I was always going off campus. One of my good friends had rented an apartment off campus. His name was Mishka, and we all went to his house to have this party for my birthday. I also had a friend named Joe. Duncan was there as well, but none of this was his fault. My friend Joe was kind of like, this was before the internet had really taken off and before the idea of trolling was really a thing, but he was like an IRL troll. He was like an in real life. He was an imp. Like, it was his goal in life to just make everyone, just cause chaos. He was an agent of chaos. And so he really intentionally just wanted to get me wasted. He wanted to see what would happen if he could get me really, really drunk and then take me back to campus. So that's what he did. He was very successful. We were doing tequila poppers, he was sneaking me different shots. My girlfriend was trying to get me not to drink as much. And Joe was kind of going behind her back and making sure that I got super wasted. I was probably the drunkest that I'd been up until that point. And we did end up going back to campus. So we had in the campus, there were different buildings, and my building, I was the RA of a certain building. My girlfriend was in a different building, so she was not one of my residents. I know that we went to her building first, and I know that we got into some kind of argument there. Some of this I do remember, and then some of this is well documented after the fact. So I know a lot of what happened retroactively, but I do remember some of this. I remember that we got into an argument. I know we were it was at that point not a great ending to the relationship, and so we were kind of like causing a scene in her dorm building. Not great, a little bit toxic at the time. I was young. And so I was supposed to stay in her room that night, but I didn't. I went back to my dorm. I do remember this really clearly. When I got back to my dorm room, I was so drunk. We had keypads to get in. We didn't have keys. And I could not, for the life of me, get the code to work. I just couldn't even do my code. And the only way I got in was that as an RA, I had the master code. And the master code was easier. It was just like 1424 or something. And I just like immediately coded in with the master code. But that's like how wasted I was. I got into the room. It was very dark. And I took my clothes off. I was in my boxer shorts. I always slept in boxers. And I realized as I was looking around, there was a figure in the bed. And at first I couldn't tell what it was, but there was something there. And as I got closer, I realized like there was a human shaped figure in my bed, and I got very perturbed. I was very drunk and rowdy. And I realized there was some guy was sleeping in my bed. And so I pulled the covers off this person and pulled him out of bed, and I was yelling at him, and I pushed him out of the room. He was in, I guess, underwear, and I slammed the door. I got in the bed. Immediately passed out because I was wasted. And I can tell by your face, you already know where this is going.
I know where this is going.
I woke up shortly after to my girlfriend shaking me, kind of the way I'd shook this guy, and saying, "This is not your room. You coded into the next door room." I had gone into the room. I had taken my clothes off. I had grabbed one of my residents from the bed, yelled at him, kicked him out. From his perspective, the RA who was in his underwear grabbed him, shook him, told him to get out of the room, and then slammed the door and got in his bed and went to sleep. And he stood out there in his underwear, trying to figure out what to do. He went and reported it to another RA, who then went and got.
You are the worst RA ever.
Worst RA ever. They went and got my girlfriend. She came, got me out of the room. They got me back to my room.
What time do you think they got you back to your room?
God, I don't know. Again, there are reports of this. It was all documented by the other RAs, and so there are timestamps on all those. I don't recall. I mean, it must have been at this point. It was 2 or 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
I woke up. I remember how I woke up. My friend Joe was taking pictures of me with like a film camera, because that's how long ago this was. Taking pictures of me. I was laying on my floor of my bedroom. I still had my clothes on. There was vomit all over my chest. And immediately I remember saying, "Joe, you threw up all over me. What the hell?" And he was like, "Oh God, you don't remember anything." And I said, "Well, not really." And he said, "Oh man, you clean yourself up and we'll talk." And so I went and hopped in the shower. I didn't shower. I changed my clothes. I washed my face and I went to class, because at the time I was so hardcore about getting to class and I was serious about academics. I remember everyone moving away from me because I still smelled like vomit in this classroom. And the hangover started hitting me at that point. It all kind of, certain things started coming back to me, and I started remembering a little bit about how bad it had been. So I had to go to a meeting with the resident coordinator, who was my boss.
I bet you did.
And the director of housing, student housing, she was there as well. And I walked into the meeting and I had I was very prepared. They'd given me about 24 hours, and I had like come up with all these bullet points of why they should still keep me in school and like why I shouldn't be kicked out. And it was, I had my case ready, and I walked in and I remember just kind of looking at them and how disappointed they were. And I just immediately said, I don't have any excuse, you guys. I screwed up, and it wasn't on purpose. And if I'm able to stay, it will never happen again. But I totally understand if I need to go. And I saw their faces kind of change. And she told me later, I talked to the housing director later, and she said, we were going to kick you out. Like, you were gone. Yeah.
But then you weren't defensive and you were honest.
I didn't do any of my bullet points. I didn't give my speech.
Good. I'm so
I just
glad.
came in and was like, yeah. I get it.
Look at the maturity. I
think I learned a lot from that, because that was a moment where, they said, and I saw her kind of turn to the resident coordinator, and she kind of shook her head. Like they had been planning this speech. They had something written out, and she was like, "No, let's give it a minute." And they said, "Okay, we're going to give you a little bit more time. We're going to talk." And they called me in the next day. So they let me kind of stew on it some more. And they said, "Yeah, we were fully going to kick you out, but because you took responsibility and the way you handled it, and we feel like we believe you that it won't happen again." I was the only RA in history of College of the Redwoods who ever had to go to drug and alcohol classes. They sent me to the same classes that I would send people to if I had to bust them for drinking. So I was in there with people that I had sent to those classes, and they thought that was pretty funny.
What was the apology to the guy you kicked out of his bed?
Yeah, I had to sit down with him. I would not say he was super cool about it. He definitely was pretty upset, but he didn't like belabor it. Like, for the rest of the year, it was fine. When we saw each other, we were cordial.
Was he scared? Was he scared at that time?
No, I don't think he was scared. He was also like a really big dude. So he was one of the football players. He wasn't like, he hadn't felt intimidated. I think it would have been a lot worse if it had been a tiny person, or definitely if it had been a woman. That I would have absolutely been kicked out of school, 100%. But it was a big guy who kind of was like, "What the hell's going on?" and just kind of walked out and was like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And so, it wasn't a traumatic experience for him, luckily, where it could have been. Everything could have been a lot worse. So, but he was okay with it. I did have to sit down and kind of have a talk with him. And then I did have to go to those classes. And it was a big thing around campus. I was, I think a lot of people thought it was funny. I got a lot of high fives from people in classes. And then I got a lot of kind of, people sort of laughing about it. There was definitely a lot of mockery.
Yeah.
And I just had to kind of take it and it was totally justified. So I had nothing, I had no comeback for that. But it was a real learning experience. I think, I ended up, and it was a pivotal moment because if I had gotten kicked out of school, I don't know how it would have gone. I ended up applying to 5 different colleges. I got into all of them. Wow. I had great grades. I had a lot of great recommendation letters and things. I got into UC Berkeley. I didn't end up going there, but I got into a bunch of colleges, including UC Berkeley I'd planned on. I ended up at UC Davis. I got a Regents scholarship there, wow. And they covered everything. So I got through college without paying for any college.
That's
without
amazing.
paying for. I didn't pay for my apartment. I didn't pay for food. I didn't pay for books. So
a Regents scholarship. Yeah. I'm trying to think what that is.
So it's a merit-based scholarship that they give out. And then it's the amount of it is also based on what you can afford. So if you can get the Regents scholarship and get very little money, if your family had a lot of money, me being pretty destitute at that time, it was a full ride scholarship. So they paid for, they gave me housing, dining plan. And then they paid for my books and school. Everything was covered.
My kid is 17 and we're looking at colleges, and I'm realizing that if you're very wealthy, college isn't a problem. And if you're very poor, you're going to get a lot of scholarships and a lot of breaks. It's the middle class who gets screwed in college because they got to pay it all.
Exactly. Yeah. Luckily, at the time, we were definitely lower than middle class. I grew up, with my single mom in the circus. We were not making money. Yeah, it was funny because during college, while I was in college, my mom started excelling. I think with me out of the house, she was able to finally focus on her own career in her life. And she started working for the American Academy of Ophthalmology. She made all this money. She now has this amazing, huge house looking out over an ocean view.
Wow.
And I go there and it's great. I'm so happy for her. I love my mom, but going there sometimes is very frustrating because I'm like, really? You got this after I left? I grew up in a tiny apartment, living.
And she started in the circus. That's something else.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, Shane, this has been so much fun talking to you. I really appreciate it. You're so interesting. And again, your podcast is just great. Everybody check out Midnight Facts for the Insomniac. And you're just such an interesting person. I'm glad you got out of college and moved on. And, have you ever drank like that again?
Not like that. No. I mean, I did continue drinking and partying, but I was also really, really hardcore through school. So I took it very seriously and didn't have any problems like that.
Good for you. That's great. That's great. So you guys check out ShaneRogers.net. That's where you can find out all of Shane's stuff. And maybe I'll come up to Santa Cruz and visit you. I've always wanted to come up that way.
You should. It's a beautiful town. It'd be great. We'll show you around. Duncan and I will play. We'll play tour guide.
I'd love that. That's awesome. All right, you guys, don't forget to check out StoryworthyPodcast.com. That has all the good information for you. And My Life in 3 Songs, of course. Check that out on Spotify. All right, you guys, we are going to wrap it up. Thank you again so much to my guest, Shane Rogers. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. This was great. I really enjoyed it.
My name is Christine Blackburn, saying, make it a story-worthy week.
Thanks for joining us on the Storyworthy Podcast. We'll be back next week with all new stories. Subscribe to Storyworthy on iTunes and visit the Storyworthy website at storyworthypodcast.com.